Finished Module 3 of the Technical Essentials course, and that was talking about networking. The first lesson in that was just a brief overview of IP addressing, subnetting, classes, and classful subnetting, that kind of thing. So not too much of an in-depth into basics. I feel like if you're looking at AWS, you probably have some fundamentals there, which makes sense. The rest of it was talking about VPC and the routing and security of those, but they didn't go very into depth in those topics. They were talking about how once you have a VPC, you need an internet gateway. Basically, if you don't add one of those, it's just like hooking up a bunch of computers together with a switch, and then the internet gateway is the router that allows you to get out. You can also have a virtual private gateway, which allows you to set up VPNs to private resources. So that was interesting that not everything has to go directly over the internet, and makes sense. The route tables were... The way that VPCs handle route tables is interesting in that there is one default, but then you can create sub routing tables. So the default applies to everything by default, and as the name would imply, and as you add rules to that, it'll affect them. But if you add a secondary routing table, that will override whatever's in the primary, which allows you to get a little bit more granular in your control of access between VPCs. The last little bit they talked about were just the network ACLs and security groups, which equate to network firewalls and host firewalls respectively. So network ACLs being the network firewall that's basically in between the VPCs in a sense. They are stateless, meaning you need to specify both inbound and outbound traffic, whereas the security groups, aka host firewalls, which are for EC2 instances specifically, are stateful. So if you have a EC2 instance in one of those groups that makes an outbound connection, any returning traffic from that connection will be allowed. Now, that was a very broad overview into VPCs specifically and the routing and security. I have some more questions about how to properly secure that, because just the way they explained it, I feel like there's a lot of room for a malicious individual to pivot from one VPC to another, and I'm sure they must have taken that into account and built in some kind of safeguard, but they didn't really touch on it in depth, so I am going to do some more research on my own into VPCs once I get through this course, and we'll see what comes up with there. But we'll get into Module 4 and see what comes next. So, see you guys later.